On Sunday, January 18, 2026, a group of about 30, 40 people took it upon themselves to barge into a church in Minnesota and disrupt a service that was in progress. A very disappointing thing to see, especially in this country. Hi, my name is John. I'm a retired police officer, an Army veteran, and a certified crisis intervention specialist. And we're going to talk about effective conflict de-escalation concepts, tips, and techniques with a ministry mindset and how it applies to you in your everyday life. Let's get to it. And they were accompanied by a former CNN news guy. I don't even want to say his name. And he claims to have just coincidentally been with this group, and since he was there, he decided to act as a journalist and had the gall and audacity to try to interview this priest, the preacher, in this ambush style. It was just absolutely sickening, and it's very, very disappointing to see. And it's a very scary thing to see because I've already seen lone wolf actions very similar to this. Seen another video of an individual on his own doing pretty much the same thing, videotaping himself going through a service, being very loud, rude, obnoxious. And all these people, especially the group in Minnesota, were in violation of Minnesota law. Even here in Michigan, it is against the law to disrupt or interfere a religious service. And I really hope that these people face the full weight and extent of the law, because the single biggest problem I see in the world right now for the last 20 years is people not seeing any type of consequences for really stupid, obnoxious, illegal behavior. And this is basic human psychology, basic animal psychology. If you get away with it once, you're going to try to do it again. And if you see someone else get away with it, you're going to try it. So how can we safely de-escalate a mob or someone who has an agenda, which is just basically to create chaos, confrontation, and stress? You can't. However, there are things you can do to mitigate the effect they have. You can mitigate the response that they're looking for. Trying to de-escalate someone with an agenda who's specifically doing things and saying things to try to create chaos and create some type of reaction or response from you is pretty nearly impossible. However, knowing the psychology that they're operating under, basically they want an audience. If you take away that attention, you take away the audience, they end up not having the effect they were looking for. Chances are they're expecting and hoping that you will react and lash out angrily, defensively, because what they do is now they produce that video to the world, social media, general media, and they claim that they're the victim and that they are being victimized by the church for just trying to simply exercise their First Amendment right to express a disagreement. That's what they're going to do. So as long as you maintain that self-discipline, slow down, take a breath, assess the situation, and just keep yourself in check. Avoid becoming overly offended, frustrated, impatient, and avoid interacting with them in such a way that unfortunately you're the one who ends up on YouTube and on the news. And it's the same thing with these First Amendment auditors out there who for years will go out there and stand on the sidewalk at the entrance and to a church, and they'll just stand there and make it a very obvious effort to let people coming and going know that they're videotaping them. And it can be very off-putting. It's very uncomfortable, but they're not violating any laws. And then what happens is that someone becomes very offended that they're being videotaped without their permission, and they go running out there, and a lot of times they end up assaulting the person out there with the video camera. And guess what? Guess who goes to jail? The person from the church or the business or whatever, because these folks on the sidewalk, on a public sidewalk, doing all this recording and all that, they're not in violation of any law. Slow down, take a deep breath, and assess the situation. Is there any imminent danger of great bodily harm or death? Consider this: every active shooter at a church that I'm aware of, or actually any active shooter that I can think of right now, going back years, never started with creating some type of disturbance which would bring attention to themselves. They started off with violence right off the bat for maximum shock and maximum destruction, maximum surprise. So slow down. If you're at church and something like this happens, a mob or a lone wolf, slow down, be careful, because the moment you go hands-on, remember, civilians, especially civilian volunteers at a church, do not have any type of legal authority to manhandle people. Step back, call the police. Yes, it's uncomfortable. Yes, it's inappropriate. Yes, it's foul. But you going hands-on someone is going to get you in trouble, or at least exponentially increase the probability you're the one who gets in trouble. They're already violating the law, but you do not have any legal mandate, state, federal, local, or otherwise, that says that you can and are authorized to go hands-on someone. So be very, very careful. You going hands-on someone is an assault. Until the police investigate and determine that you were justified in going hands-on someone at face value when they first arrive on scene, you're the one who just committed some type of physical assault on someone. So I'm just asking you, slow down. It is absolutely sickening what is going on. I'm not lying. It frustrates me too. But on one hand, I'm glad this happened so that now we can all just take a moment to think about how our response is, how our reaction is going to be. And I'm just asking everyone, slow down. Remember, their goal is to create a chaotic scene for an audience. They're looking for an audience. Don't give it to them. You may find yourself playing crowd control to keep your congregation from attacking these people. Because I've actually had several incidences at my church where congregants became very upset and tried to insert themselves in some incidences that they had no business inserting themselves and that were under control by our people. So you may find yourself, based on my own life experiences and observations as recently as in the last year or so at my own church, you may find yourself actually playing crowd control and trying to make sure that your parishioners and congregants don't end up doing or saying something to escalate a situation. Because I promise you, the media is not going to talk about that person. They will talk about the church. If you stay calm, you are wise. But if you are hot-tempered, you show how stupid you are. That's in Proverbs 14:29. So basically, if you take a long, slow, deep breath, slow down, develop situational awareness, assessing the situation, you become wise. And you become wise to what you need to say or do next to mitigate saying or doing something that escalates the situation. However, if you're hot-tempered, you let yourself become overly frustrated, offended, impatient with what's going on, you're more likely than not going to be the one to say or do something to escalate a situation. And that's just stupid, because that's what they're looking for. That's what they want and are hoping for. That's what this CNN news guy was hoping for. If you got something out of this video, hit that like and subscribe. Tell other people about me. And folks, slow down. Play your God-given ace card. God bless you. We're going to get through this. I don't know how or when it's going to get any better anytime soon, just because of the way things are going. But you have to trust it's going to be okay. The good Lord's got everything under control. All right? We'll see you on the next video.